What? Wait, listen to me. I don't care if you know him. This assignment must go on no matter what. That's not a request, it's final.
Nothing must happen to that man, or you'll have me to answer to, you wicked, heartless woman.
Adaeze, Nneka, you'll both regret your actions. You chose your father over me, over your own mother, an ordinary palm wine tapper.
The gavel dropped hard. Life imprisonment. No parole. Chinyu didn't flinch. She stood tall as if the verdict meant nothing. But as they led her away, she turned toward the gallery, toward Obinna and the daughters she once abandoned. You'll remember me, she hissed. When the house is too quiet, you'll miss me. But Obinna didn't blink. And Nneka, standing proud in her white coat, whispered, We'll only remember the peace that came when you left. It had been 2 months since Chinyu said. Before we unravel today's story, make sure to like, comment, and share. You're watching the Global Storyteller Official, where every tale leaves a mark. In the small, sleepy village of Ominachi, just before the sun stretched its arms across the sky, a man sat quietly on the dusty floor of his thatched room, holding 2 tiny, crying babies in his arms. His name was Obinna, a poor but hard-working palm wine tapper. The air was still, except for the soft wails of the twins and the sharp sound of a zipper closing behind him. His wife, Chinyu, stood at the edge of the room, stuffing the last of her clothes into a faded travel bag. Her face was cold, her eyes empty. Chinyu, please, Obinna said softly, bouncing the babies gently. Don't leave us like this. Just give me a little more time. I'll climb more trees, tap more wine. Things will get better. Chinyu didn't meet his eyes. She yanked her bag upright and tossed in her shoes. I've waited enough, Obinna, she snapped. You come home smelling of palm wine every day. No progress. No future. Just sap, sweat, and suffering. Obinna's voice cracked. And the children? Our daughters? They need you. Chinyu scoffed, brushing invisible dust from her skirt. They're your problem now. I didn't sign up for this level of poverty. Let me go before I die in this bush. The babies wailed louder, their little bodies trembling. Obinna stood, one baby on each shoulder, his face lined with despair. Please, Chinyu. Let's raise them together. But she turned away, opened the bamboo door, and disappeared into the dawn. Obinna didn't cry. He looked down at his daughters and whispered, Nneka, Adaeze, it's just us now. But I swear, I'll never let you go. The next morning, Obinna strapped both babies, Nneka and Adaeze, on his back with a torn wrapper and stepped into the cool morning mist. His climbing rope, calabash gourds, and tapping knife hung from his shoulder. The twins were barely 3 months old, yet they followed him everywhere now. His workplace wasn't a shop or an office. It was the wild palm bush at the edge of Ominachi. He would climb trees with his bare feet, slice the bark, and place his calabash to collect the sweet sap. Sometimes the bees stung. Other times the branches snapped under his weight. But still he climbed for them. In the evenings, Obinna would take the collected palm wine to the village square to sell. He tied a cloth over his head to shield the sun and balanced the clay pots carefully on a borrowed wheelbarrow. The twins slept beside him in a woven basket. Some laughed when they saw him. Look at Obinna, one man sneered. Carrying babies and wine like a madman. Poor man, a woman whispered. His wife ran away and left him with twins. Palm wine tapper by day, babysitter by night. Obinna didn't reply. He only smiled weakly and kept selling bottle by bottle. Every coin went to feeding the girls, pap in the morning, ground yam at night. Sometimes, when there wasn't enough, he drank warm water and let them eat. One afternoon, as he sat under a mango tree, feeding Nneka with mashed beans, a familiar voice broke the silence. Obinna, my brother. It was Ikenna, his old friend from secondary school, now a motorcycle repairer in the next town. You look tired, Ikenna said, lowering his voice. Why not take them to the orphanage? Let them find a better life. Obinna looked at his daughters, then back at his friend. Ikenna, these girls are not a burden. They're my miracle. Even if I climb 10 trees a day until my back breaks, I will raise them myself. Years rolled by like the wind in dry season. Nneka and Adaeze grew into graceful young girls, kind, quiet, and brilliant. While other children laughed at their torn sandals and old notebooks, they studied under kerosene lamps and fetched water without complaint. Obinna never missed a day in the palm bush. His hands became stiff from years of climbing. His feet, once smooth, now had scars from thorns and slips. But he never stopped. When the girls turned 16, they passed their senior secondary exams in flying colors. Adaeze wanted to study medicine. Nneka dreamed of becoming a surgeon. But there was a mountain standing in their way: money. One evening, Obinna sat outside the hut sharpening his tapping knife. His daughters approached, holding their admission letters like sacred scrolls. "Papa," Nneka began, "we got in. Both of us. University of Nsukka." Obinna's hands trembled slightly, but he smiled. "My angels," he said, "you've made me the proudest father alive." "But Papa," Adaeze added gently, "we know school fees, hostel books, it's a lot. We understand if you can't afford it." Obinna looked at them long and hard. Then he stood up, wiped his hands on his wrapper, and said, "I once had a little land by the river. It's the last thing your mother left behind. Tomorrow I will sell it." The girls gasped. "No, Papa, that's all we have left." Obinna placed his hands on their heads. "What I have is you. That land will grow weeds. But you will grow nations. Let me sell it, and watch you rise." The next day, Obinna sold the land. The money wasn't much, but enough to start their university journey. That night, he sat by the firelight, whispering into the stars. "God, I have no land, no wife, no savings, but I still believe. Please bless my girls." The University of Nigeria, Nsukka, was a world unlike anything Nneka and Adaeze had ever known. Tall buildings, loud lectures, fast-talking students. But no one knew the weight the sisters carried, the weight of a father's sacrifice. They shared a tiny hostel room. Their clothes were secondhand. Their food was simple, mostly Gary beans and sometimes nothing at all. Yet they walked to class each day with their heads high, remembering Papa's words. "Make me proud, my angels." Back in Ominachi, Obinna's life grew harder. Without the land to farm and less demand for palm wine during rainy season, he struggled. Yet every week he sent a little money, just enough for textbooks, just enough for food. He climbed trees until his palms bled and coughed through the cold mornings, but never missed a day. One day, he collapsed beside the tree he had just tapped. The village nurse came running. "Obinna, you need to rest," she said. Obinna shook his head, forcing a smile. "I will rest when my girls graduate. Then I will sleep like a king." Meanwhile, at school, Nneka was studying late into the night when Adaeze rushed in, her voice low and scared. "They just called me. Papa collapsed. He's been taken to the health center." They both froze. Books forgotten. Food untouched. The next morning, they returned to the village, their hearts pounding. Obinna lay on a small cot in the clinic, thin and pale but smiling when he saw them. "My girls," he whispered. "Don't stop. You're almost there." Nneka held his hand, crying. "We'll go back to school, Papa. But promise us you'll rest." "I promise," he said weakly. And he did. From that day, Obinna slowed down. Not because he was giving up, but because his daughters were rising. And soon, the world would know the daughters of a palm wine tapper. The sun shone bright over Nsukka as hundreds of students lined up in white coats, their eyes glimmering with hope and pride. It was graduation day. And standing among the finest future doctors in Nigeria were Dr. Nneka Obinna and Dr. Adaeze Obinna, daughters of a man the world once laughed at. But their eyes weren't searching for the crowd. They searched only for one man. Then they saw him, standing by the front row, dressed in a dark blue suit they had saved for months to buy, a red cap resting gently on his gray hair. Obinna, the palm wine tapper, the father who never gave up. The moment the ceremony ended, they ran to him. Nneka dropped to her knees. "Papa, we made it." Obinna's lips quivered. His old hands reached out and pulled them close. "My daughters," he whispered, "you've made me the richest man in the world." Tears flowed freely. People turned to look. Some clapped. Others cried. Later that evening, they returned to the village with him. They sat under the same mango tree where they once studied by lantern light. "Papa," Adaeze said quietly, "we didn't just graduate." Nneka smiled. "We built something." Obinna frowned. "What do you mean?" Nneka reached into her bag and handed him a large brown envelope. Inside were photos. A tall building. Clean glass windows. A signboard that read, Obinna Memorial Medical Center. "We used our internship stipends and took a small loan. We've built a hospital, Papa," Adaeze whispered. "It's yours. It's for the village. And it's named after the man who taught us that love climbs trees, not ladders." Obinna covered his face with his hands. He didn't say a word. He just cried. Under the moonlight, surrounded by his daughters, Obinna finally realized he hadn't just tapped palm wine. He had tapped destiny. 2 months after the hospital's grand opening, peace filled the Obinna household like never before. Obinna now lived in a comfortable bungalow built beside the hospital. Nurses greeted him as Papa Obinna, and patients bowed respectfully. But one quiet afternoon, as he rested on the veranda sipping warm palm wine for old time's sake, he noticed someone sweeping the hospital corridor awkwardly. Her back was bent, her wrapper faded, her eyes rarely lifted from the ground. Something tugged at his heart. Later that week, Nneka and Adaeze returned from a medical outreach and found him unusually quiet. "Papa, what's wrong?" Nneka asked. Obinna didn't answer immediately. Then he pointed to a woman mopping near the emergency ward. "That cleaner," he said. "Come closer, look well. Does she look familiar?" The girls turned and squinted. When the woman finally raised her head and their eyes met, time stopped. Chinyu, the woman who abandoned them when they were just babies. Her mop slipped. Her knees buckled. "No," she whispered, backing away. "It can't be." Adaeze stepped forward. "Mama." Chinyu dropped to her knees and wept, her cries echoing down the hall. "I'm sorry. I didn't know it was your hospital. I didn't know," her voice broke. "I was sick. They helped me here. Gave me this job to pay back slowly." Obinna stood slowly. He didn't move toward her. Just watched. "I was foolish," Chinyu sobbed. "I traded a diamond for dust. I didn't know love until I lost everything. Please don't hate me." There was silence. Then Nneka, trembling, knelt beside her. "We grew up with pain, but Papa taught us to forgive." Adaeze joined her. "And you are still our mother." They embraced her, weeping. Obinna turned his face away, wiping a tear. Forgiveness had come, but healing still had a long journey ahead. It had been 1 month since Chinyu moved into the Obinna household. On the surface, peace had returned. She cooked meals, helped clean the compound, even went with the girls to church on Sundays. To outsiders, they looked like a healed family. But inside Obinna, something was still broken. Every morning when he saw her preparing breakfast like nothing ever happened, memories clawed back. The image of her slamming that bamboo door, of holding crying babies alone, of being laughed at in the market square. He smiled for his daughter's sake, but the past was loud. One afternoon, while Nneka and Adaeze were at the hospital, Chinyu approached Obinna on the balcony. "Obinna," she began, her voice gentle. "It's been a month. I've apologized. I've changed. I'm not the woman who left you. Maybe it's time we return to being husband and wife." Obinna folded his newspaper slowly. "No, Chinyu," he said quietly. "That chapter is closed." Chinyu flinched. "Why? I've cooked. I've cleaned. I've humbled myself." "You did all that for survival," he replied. "Not for love." She stepped forward. "So, what now?" "I live under the same roof with you, and we pretend." Obinna nodded slowly. "Exactly that. My daughters want you close. But I want peace. And your presence brings me pain." Her eyes narrowed. "So you want them to throw me out?" "I never said that," he replied calmly. "But I told them to find you a house. A comfortable one. You deserve shelter, not my heart." Chinyu's voice rose. "You're still that poor, bitter palm wine tapper inside." Obinna looked at her, pain flashing in his eyes. "And you're still the woman who couldn't wait for love to grow." She stormed inside, slamming the door. Upstairs, Nneka and Adaeze, who had just returned, exchanged quiet looks. Their father had forgiven her, but his heart had not forgotten. Days passed, but Chinyu's heart did not soften. Instead, it grew colder. She wore her smiles like masks, only putting them on when Nneka and Adaeze were around. But when they weren't, the mask slipped. She grew restless in the house. The peace that lived between the walls now felt like poison in her veins. Watching Obinna sit calmly on the balcony while the girls fussed over him boiled her blood. Why do they love him more? She thought. What about me? I'm their mother too. One morning, Adaeze brought her a gift, a brand new wrapper and handbag. Just a small thank you, Mama, she said sweetly. Chinyu smiled, but later muttered under her breath. If only they knew how hard it is to raise children. That man just sat under trees collecting sap, and now they call him king. She began to sow quiet seeds of resentment. You know, your father wasn't always this calm, she told Nneka one day in the kitchen. He had a temper back then. I was the one who kept the house sane. He just climbed trees and came home drunk on palm wine. Nneka frowned. But Mama, Papa never drank. Chinyu waved it off. You were babies. You don't know. Later that week, she told Adaeze. Do you know your father once refused to buy me medicine when I was sick? But today he wears suits. Life is funny. The girls grew quiet, confused. One evening, Nneka asked Obinna gently, Papa, did you ever? No, he said softly. But I see where this is going. The next morning, he called his daughters to the balcony. My angels, he said calmly, you gave her a place. That was kindness. But do not let kindness blind you from truth. They nodded silently. And from that day, they started to watch, not just listen. Chinyu sat by the window every morning, watching Obinna smile with visitors, neighbors, hospital staff. Everyone who passed called him Papa Obinna with respect. She watched Nneka and Adaeze laugh with him, bring him tea, show him affection she believed should be hers. Why is he the center of everything? She asked herself, bitterness thick in her throat. I carried those girls for 9 months. Why don't they see me? Then one afternoon, a woman from the village came to visit. I heard your daughters bought your ex-husband a car, she said, laughing softly. And you? Still staying under his roof. That night, Chinyu didn't sleep. Her heart beat with humiliation. She stopped eating. She stopped greeting. Her face hardened. Then she met a boy, young, sweet-talking, and hungry for money. He admired her jewelry. She gave him her necklaces. He complained about rent. She handed him cash. They met in secret places. He called her queen. She smiled for the first time in weeks. When Nneka and Adaeze heard rumors, they couldn't believe it. She's dating a boy young enough to be her son, a neighbor whispered. Disbelief turned to heartbreak when they confirmed it. Mom, Nneka said one evening, confronting her gently. We heard you're seeing someone, is it true? Chinyu crossed her arms. And so what if I am? At least someone sees me. But Mama, that boy is using you. Adaeze pleaded. You're giving him money we worked for. Chinyu laughed bitterly. Maybe I'd rather spend it on someone who values me. Unlike this house where I'm invisible. Obinna remained silent that night, but the next morning he called the girls. My peace is disturbed again, he said quietly. It's time. And just like before, the daughters understood. They began searching for an apartment. Not as punishment, but for peace. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Nneka and Adaeze sat their mother down. Mom, Adaeze began gently, we've found you a beautiful apartment. Close to the hospital. Fully furnished. You'll be comfortable there. Chinyu looked up slowly, her eyes dark. Are you pushing me out? No, Nneka said softly. We just want peace. This house is tense. Papa isn't sleeping well. We're all walking on eggshells. Please understand. Chinyu stood abruptly, her wrapper falling slightly from her shoulder. So you've chosen him over me. Mom, no one is choosing sides. Shut up, she screamed. The girls flinched. I gave birth to you, Chinyu shouted. I carried you. I bled for you. And now I'm being thrown away like trash while that palm wine tapper is treated like a king. Obinna appeared from the hallway, calm but firm. Enough, Chinyu. She spun to him. You, this is all you're doing. They were mine. I gave them life. But you stole their hearts. Obinna remained silent, his hands behind his back. Do you know how it feels? Chinyu continued, voice trembling. To be ignored? To see your children worship a man who once climbed trees and begged for food. Adaeze stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Mama, he begged for us. He climbed trees for us. While you walked away. Nneka added, he didn't steal our hearts. He earned them. Chinyu collapsed into the chair, sobbing uncontrollably. You'll all regret this. One day you'll see. I should have been the one to stay. Obinna turned to the girls. Pack her things. Let's help her settle in her new place with dignity. But as they walked away, Chinyu looked up, and in her eyes wasn't regret. It was hatred. Something darker had begun to grow. The apartment was beautiful. Airy. Clean. Furnished with everything Chinyu could need. But inside her, nothing was beautiful. She paced the tiled floor, eyes bloodshot with anger. They took my daughters. They took my place, she muttered. And now they want me to live quietly like I don't matter? She picked up her phone and scrolled to a contact saved under one name. Dyke, work only. Her fingers trembled, but her heart was steady. She dialed. Hello, a rough voice answered. It's me, she whispered. I need your help again. There was silence. Who? The man asked sharply. Chinyu. From Enugu. I paid you last time. You remember the boy. The man chuckled darkly. Ah, the sugar mummy. I need one more job, Chinyu said firmly. There's a man. Obinna. He's the father of my children. He ruined everything. The man didn't speak. I'll pay, she added quickly. Anything you want. Still no reply. Then the voice said, I remember that man. Chinyu frowned. You know him? There was a long pause. Yes, the man finally said. Many years ago, when my father was dying, no one helped us. No one except him. That man gave us food, gave us clothes, gave my sister school money. He never even knew our names. Chinyu froze. I promised my father I'd repay that man one day, the voice continued. And today is that day. What are you saying? She stammered. I'm saying this, the man growled. Next time you call me, it better be to apologize. Because if anyone touches that man, it will be me protecting him. The line went dead. Chinyu dropped the phone. For the first time in her life, she felt something cold grip her chest. Fear. It was a quiet afternoon. Obinna sat in the living room, sipping warm tea while reading an old Bible, his favorite verse underlined and worn. The house was peaceful. Nneka and Adaeze were at the hospital handling patient rounds, and the birds outside chirped softly. Then came a knock. Not the gentle tap of a neighbor, but a low, calculated knock. Obinna opened the door slowly. Standing there was a rough-looking man in a black hoodie. His beard was unkempt, his shoes dusty. Good afternoon, sir, he said quietly. Obinna frowned. Yes. Can I help you? You don't know me, the man said, stepping forward. But I know you. Obinna's heart skipped. Who are you? My name is Abiub, the man said, removing his cap. Years ago, you helped my family when we had nothing. My father was dying. You gave him food and paid for medicine. My sister finished secondary school because of you. Obinna blinked, searching his memory. Abiub smiled faintly. You never knew our names. You just helped and walked away. Obinna nodded slowly. I remember vaguely. Abiub's smile vanished. Your ex-wife. Chinyu paid me to hurt you. Obinna's legs weakened. What? She gave me money. Promised more. She wants you out of the way. The air thickened. But I came to warn you, Abiub said. Because a debt of kindness is a blood promise. I will never let anyone touch you. Obinna staggered into a chair, his hands shaking. She's been poisoning your daughter's minds. She's angry that they chose you over her. But now she's crossed the line. What should I do? Obinna asked quietly. Tell them, Abiub said. Tell your daughters the truth. And go to the police before it's too late. Then he disappeared into the road, vanishing like smoke. Obinna sat in silence, tears in his eyes, not from fear, but from the weight of a kindness he forgot he gave. By evening, Nneka and Adaeze rushed home, summoned by a call from their father. They found him in the sitting room, pale but composed, his Bible still resting on his lap. Papa, Adaeze asked, sitting beside him. Are you okay? Nneka added, her voice full of concern. Obinna looked at his daughters, their faces so full of love, and slowly told them everything. The man, the warning, the plot, their mother. The room fell silent. Adaeze's hand covered her mouth. Nneka's eyes filled with tears. She was going to have you killed, Adaeze whispered. Obinna nodded slowly. But God sent the very man I once helped to save me. Without hesitation, Nneka stood up. We're going to the police. Tonight. The next morning, Chinyu was arrested outside her apartment. She didn't resist. She stood silently, watching the officers cuff her hands. But in her eyes, there was no guilt. Only rage. At the court hearing, the truth was laid bare. Her affair with the young boy, her payments to Abiub, the first hit she'd ordered on the boy when he left her, and now the attempted hit on Obinna. The judge looked at her coldly. You had every chance to rebuild your life, he said. Instead, you allowed jealousy to turn you into a weapon. You don't deserve sympathy. You deserve separation, from peace, from family, from freedom. The gavel dropped hard. Life imprisonment. No parole. Chinyu didn't flinch. She stood tall as if the verdict meant nothing. But as they led her away, she turned toward the gallery, toward Obinna and the daughters she once abandoned. You'll remember me, she hissed. When the house is too quiet, you'll miss me. But Obinna didn't blink. And Nneka, standing proud in her white coat, whispered, We'll only remember the peace that came when you left. It had been 2 months since Chinyu's sentencing. For the first time in years, the Obinna home breathed freely. No tension. No whispered insults. No threats. Just laughter, warm food, and the quiet joy of peace. One sunny afternoon, Nneka and Adaeze sat beside their father in the garden, beneath the same mango tree where he once whispered promises to their baby hands. Papa, Nneka said gently, we have something to tell you. Obinna looked up from his cup of palm wine, smiling. Good news, I hope. Adaeze nodded, blushing. We're getting married. Obinna blinked. Both of you? They giggled. Yes. Same day. Different grooms. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, overwhelmed. My daughter's doctors, now brides. We waited until you had peace, Nneka added. We couldn't marry while your heart was still carrying wounds. Obinna stood and hugged them both, eyes glistening. May your marriages never taste what mine did. The weeks that followed were magical. The compound became a celebration ground. Drummers practiced. Tents rose. Palm fronds were tied around trees. Villagers whispered, "Those are Obinna's daughters, the ones he raised alone." The wedding day came, golden and glorious. Obinna wore his best Igbata, gifted by his sons-in-law. He danced proudly, lifted high by family and friends who once mocked his struggles. As he walked Nneka and Adaeze down the aisle, the crowd stood in awe. He kissed them both and whispered, "You were the reward I waited for." The guests clapped. Cameras flashed. Palm wine flowed. That night, as the sky lit with stars, Obinna sat outside, watching the light dance across the village hills. He smiled, not because he had gained wealth, but because everything he lost had returned as something greater. It was early morning on Father's Day. Obinna was still asleep when soft footsteps crept into his room. Nneka and Adaeze, now married, now full women, stood by his bedside smiling. "Papa," Nneka whispered. He stirred. Come outside. We want to show you something." Still groggy, he rose, adjusted his wrapper, and followed them to the front compound. What he saw made him freeze. Right in the middle of the compound sat a brand-new white SUV, shining like the morning sun, decorated with red ribbons and palm leaves woven into a heart. He blinked. "What is this?" he whispered. Adaeze placed the key in his hand. "Your Father's Day gift." Obinna shook his head slowly. "A car? For me?" Nneka nodded. "For the man who climbed trees with wounded feet. For the man who carried us when we had nothing. For the man who never gave up." Tears rushed down his cheeks as everyone, staff, villagers, neighbors, came out and clapped. One of the nurses from the hospital stepped forward with a microphone. "Today, we dedicate the new wing of Obinna Memorial Medical Center to its founder and father of vision, Chief Obinna Adaeze, a father like no other." A golden plaque was unveiled, in honor of the palm wine tapper who raised doctors with love instead of riches. Obinna fell to his knees, weeping. "I never imagined this," he whispered. "All I had were my hands and my heart." Nneka and Adaeze lifted him up. "And that was enough," they said in unison. That night, under the stars, with the sound of laughter echoing through the hills, Obinna sat by the fire once more, not with sorrow, but as a man who had poured out everything and been filled in return. He looked up and whispered, "Thank you, God. I have truly lived." Moral lesson summary. This story reminds us that true wealth is not measured in money, but in love, sacrifice, and character. Obinna, a poor palm wine tapper, was abandoned, mocked, and left with nothing but 2 crying babies. Yet he chose not bitterness, but purpose. Through tireless work, humility, and unwavering love, he raised his daughters to become pillars of society. It teaches us that patience, faith, and doing good, even when no one is watching, will always bear fruit. Evil may rise for a moment, but it will always fall in the face of truth. Forgiveness is powerful, but not every person who returns deserves a place in your peace. And most importantly, even if the world laughs at your beginning, stay true, because one day, the same world will rise and clap for your legacy. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, please. The end.